Good afternoon, Scott here, known as Cantaloupe to some online, and I'm bringing a video to you on a subject that's interesting to me. It might be of interest to you or someone you know. And in this video, I want to talk about how people sometimes confuse propriety, that is the right thing to do, with consequences that people impose on them, or the environment, or situational variables, if that makes sense. I'm just kind of showing you where I am, the beautiful river, the Russian River. I've been spending some time here lately. So what I mean to say is circumstances can influence somebody's decision. Of course, you should weigh in all of the important information and details before making a decision so that it's an informed decision. But ultimately, what's right and wrong shouldn't hinge on circumstances too much. It's sometimes hard to make a judgment call, but you have to. Sometimes it's hard to remember that the good choice, the high road, so to speak, is many times unprofitable. And that's the point of this video. So, for example, following a bad leader, or somebody who is making a bad example, getting on the bandwagon. If you've heard of getting on the bandwagon, when a lot of people are doing the same thing just because people are doing the same thing, but not because it's a righteous cause or prudent or called for, but because it's popular, and because perhaps there are some people, influential people, telling you that you must, telling you that there will be consequences if you do not, and thereby deciding that because of these things it's proper, deciding that because somebody is perhaps threatening you or telling you that if you fail to abide by their requirements, then you will get in trouble, so to speak. Deciding because of that something is categorically proper is you're jumping to a wrong conclusion. Sometimes perhaps it's proper, but many times it's not. And you'll see that the proper course, unfortunately, has a cost to it. Many times it's a hallmark of doing something properly. There's some work involved, there's some effort, and sometimes some sacrifice. And my point here is that many people will tell you that you have to do something because it is expected, that you have to do something that is required because if you don't, you're going to get in trouble by some authority, or you're going to end up breaking some rule that was invented to begin with. And when you really look at it, it's only designed to support an elite class of people, whether it's local or global or whatever. It's some person whose job becomes easier when everybody obeys what they tell you to do, which unfortunately, again, the point here is does not make it proper necessarily, not necessarily. So how do you know what's proper? Okay, let me get to the point. How do you know when something's actually righteous? And I'll tell you, there's a measurement, a clue, a very powerful clue, and that is, does it result in turning something into a better situation, ultimately? Objectively, and granted, it's difficult to tell sometimes if it's going to be improved, if a person or a situation, an environment are going to be improved by a particular decision versus just one person or small handful of people at the cost of the many, which unfortunately happens a lot. So, for example, somebody tells you you have to pay them, and this used to be a very common thing called highwaymen. Highwaymen, people who rob people on the highway. We don't have a lot of highwaymen, or do we? Maybe they've just changed their uniforms. They don't look like highwaymen anymore, but they're very much still in operation. They've become organized. They've become networked. They've become official, and they have rules and regulations to support them and to conceal their actual purpose and identity. There are very much still highwaymen, and they pose as toll collectors, bill collectors, tax collectors, and this is all nothing new, right? We've had tax collectors for nefarious purposes, nefarious taxation purposes all throughout history, including in the Bible. It's riddled with information about tax collectors and the ongoing strife and difficulties faced by the people of that time because of these evil people. They're presented as evil in the Bible many times. So again, last thing I'll say is, because someone points a gun in your face, figuratively or literally, doesn't mean that what they're telling you to do becomes proper all of a sudden. It's good to keep this in mind. It's very good to remember that just because you're forced to do something, perhaps in the moment, doesn't mean that it became the right thing to do. Call it what it is. It was coercion. It was a decision made under what's called duress, which is legitimately excusing. It's exonerating. You can be pardoned or forgiven even in the eyes of the court if in fact there was some kind of duress, some kind of threat of realistic violence, at which time you had to do things that you wouldn't want to do or normally choose to do. And unfortunately we live in a world where there's tons of duress that just gets overlooked. It gets glossed over. It is sometimes hidden with the disguise of officiality. It is disguised as some kind of public protocol or an expectation of behavior, some kind of code of behavior. And this is why, connected, there have been historical attempts to give people inalienable rights to combat this tendency of corrupt, unscrupulous administrators to leverage and abuse their power to get people to do things that are untoward and self-serving. Inalienable rights, I'm using a lot of big words here, that means rights that cannot be taken away from you, rights that are not created by those documents, such as the Bill of Rights and the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence and all of that stuff, but are reflected by it, not created by it, but reflected by it as discoveries that form the basis of a working civilization. They don't create it. It wasn't invented by somebody. It was discovered as inalienable aspects, intrinsic aspects of a working society that people cannot be alienated from, such as the amendments of the Constitution. For example, freedom of speech. It was discovered and amended to the Constitution as being a necessary, essential function of a working society, a human society. That is to say, not one that is barbaric, not one that is rooted in jungle law, which is what they kind of had before. What the revolutionaries who fought the British, who came to America, who established independence, it's almost the 4th of July, it's just a couple of weeks away, a national holiday here where our country celebrates our independence from the British. And as an aside, not to digress too far, we as a country decided that a lot of things were very important. So we penned them into our basic founding documents. The presumption of innocence before guilt, the inalienable rights outlined in the Constitution and its amendments, freedom of speech, the right to bear arms, they got a little wacky towards the end of the Constitution. And I think it needs a revision, but the spirit is good. The spirit of reflecting inalienable rights that create an environment where people can pursue happiness, this is also mentioned. They are free to live their lives how they see fit without undue interference, without micromanagement by some corrupt authority, which is what they had just bucked off of them by fighting the British and fled to the New World from a corrupt country, from many corrupt European countries actually, not just England. It's a big, big subject. A lot of people fail to pay attention in history class. A lot of people just either skipped the class or they didn't understand it. It was too boring for them. But I, for one, I'll speak for myself, and I'm not trying to brag, I was fascinated by history, such as it was. I heard enough of it to understand that the happiness and righteousness are powerfully reflected in the founding documents of the United States. And these things cannot be destroyed. They cannot be taken away from the people. The government itself and the agencies contained therein are created by those same documents, which means no government agency shall act in repugnance to these documents, especially the Constitution. And this is also specifically outlined. But unfortunately, people don't pay attention. They become unvigilant. They become lax and unquestioning. They keep their heads down. They allow themselves to be intimidated and threatened. And then, back to the point of this video, they accept that what's proper behavior is simply that which keeps you out of trouble. But it's not. It's not. And it never will be, because it's taking you downhill. Ultimately, it's the path of least resistance. When you just do what you're told and you fail to question the reasons behind it, if there are any reasons behind it, if you just accept and settle for some kind of abuse on behalf of all people by a corrupt or self-serving administration that has forgotten its role, forgotten its job, and gotten too big for its britches, If you accept that, you are part of the problem, and I have no sympathy at that point. I think that everybody just needs a quick reminder that what's proper, back to the subject, what's proper and righteous has nothing to do with threats. It has nothing to do with obedience or rules or regulations. It has to do with setting people up for success, letting them be as happy and healthy as they can possibly be within reason, and remembering that to serve the needs of the few over the needs of the many is a wild abuse. It misses the point, and it is repugnant to every spirit that this country was founded on. So something to think about. Go uphill. It's harder. There's a cost involved to doing the right thing, and that's how you know it's the right thing, because it takes a little effort sometimes, most of the time. A little elbow grease, a little bit of, sacrifice sometimes. Nobody's asking you to be Jesus Christ. Nobody's asking you to throw yourself on the cross just to make things a little bit better than you found them. I'd be happy with that. I would settle for that if everybody remembered to stop pissing in the pool, so to speak. Just leave things a little bit better than you found them, and it doesn't really take that much. Something to think about instead of having an orgy of malpreparedness, an orgy of self-serving belligerence to your neighbors, belligerence to yourselves when you accept the absolute failure of an administration and a system that hasn't done its job for over 100 years. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm at 12 minutes, so I'm going to wrap it up. The hallmark of what's proper is that it's unprofitable most of the time. Keep that in mind. Reach out if you like with questions down below. Thank you.